And yeah, reload the page if you haven't already. That's always a great tip. In here, if we are against a more aggressive reg, we could call with pretty much anything. Even in here, right now, we are like requiring 21%, and we are actually, when we are in position, even with this low stack size and against a larger stack size, I think that we are going to get more than 21%. And yeah, wait for a few moments if it works or not. And on the river, we are going to go for all in anyway. Like no matter what, he can't push us out of the pot anymore. Even though the flush draw comes through. In a way, well played for him to use his stack size, because I would need to fold a lot, but I would still have called with most of my one pair hands. I think the ace on the river was a pretty good card for him to bluff, since there shouldn't be that many aces on my range. Of course, there shouldn't be that many aces on his range, so I should have called with any jack anyways, and when having the two pairs, it's just like icing on the cake. Let's take a bit of a more interesting route here. We could have gone for a stop and go with pocket sevens as well with these stack sizes. But when we are hitting a 3-jack-jack flop, it's going to be one of the best flops for us. The queen was something that I didn't like, for sure. Like this is something that you don't want to see when you are going with a small pocket pair. You also don't want to see these small raises here. So I think that we'll need to fold with these pocket sevens. I just think that we are having too much equity on the flop too. So far, so good. With a big stack against these two shorties that are going to be probably way too tight, I think that min raising is probably going to be better than shoving with almost any two cards. There are some cards that I would shove there still that are going to have so much equity, and there are going to be, our opponents are going to be quite short stacked. We are not in the bubble yet. I think ace 10 off with, it's not a hand that we would like against Jagurtov we would call with confidence, so I hope that everything works right now. That should be pretty awesome if everything would work. And every time I stop speaking, Christian is worried that it's going to freeze again. So there's some pressure for me to try to keep talking. With ace queen suited, even against this guy, like there's a slightly reggy looking player opening, so even when calling is probably the worst thing that could happen to us, because people are usually flat calling with generally a stronger range than they would try to ISO shove there. So I'm thinking that we are probably going to have a stronger range against us, but with ace queen suited, we are just going to have a, in here, even the Bubos Banka is going to be, he's going to be a reg. I think that we need to call because pocket tens is so strong, and also that when we are having like pot sizes that are this big, then we can collide with wider ranges. And it's, in a way, it's completely counterintuitive in how other games work, that we can collide with wider ranges, but when we are having a larger stack size in chips, then we can collide a bit wider, because then more of our equity is not the survival equity, but more of the equity that we are having is going to be going to be the equity of the chips that we are holding. What are these red boxes? They are from Session Lord's multi-tabling. So there is one box of giving me the pot odds that are coming to me instantly. And then there is going to be one box on how much time there has been from the last blind increase, and then how many tables do I have running, how many tables are waiting on my decision, and then how many tables are now going on the time bank. Okay, we are having 2 games left. In here, I think with the weak ace, I think the most profitable way to go is go for a shove. And in here, even though we are having 13 big blinds, with the big antes, we are only having 8.5 anti-adjusted big blinds. And also one other thing to note is that the average stack sizes behind us are going to be quite low. In here, Banka seems to be a slightly reggy player, so these are 3 players that are so short that they don't matter that much. And in here, when a reggy player shoves from the cutoff, I think that we are going to be way ahead of his range with King Jack. And King 10 off is King 10 suited is something that we don't mind seeing, but. And now we are going for a slightly more sneaky approach. I think that when we are having a soft table, then we are also, even though these 2 guys are likely a bit more reggy, at least this Juan Carlos seems to be a pretty okay reg. So then we are just trying to get these guys to go broke more often than. And Kauris says that is this first hands? No, it's the amount of tournaments. The second one is going to be on how many tables it's waiting for my action. And then there is going to be on how many tables it's waiting for time bank. So let's wait for the time bank. So now it's when time bank has been called, or we are at this stage that it's going to be, we would need to hurry with our decision. Then it shows here. So it's basically a measure of how much action do I have at any point. And if I for example, if I play hypers and it says that 20, 10 and 8, then I know that I'm completely screwed. Like I have 10 tables waiting for my action, and on those tables I have like 6 seconds to go, and then there is like 8 tables already crushing through their time banks. So, and when it's something like 6-0-0, that's the optimum. You don't have any decisions waiting. And it doesn't show you sit outs because it will always sit you back in. There's the backer tool that will always sit you back in, so. In here, even though we are having a random player, I think Jack 10 off is going to be a hand that we would like to shove rather than do anything else. There's a ton of pressure that we can apply to opponents, but if the opponent don't understand the pressure, then it's also quite an easy way to screw ourselves. But we are just, when we are having a really soft table and when we are having players that are likely not understanding ICM, we are just going to, we are not going for all of the thinnest of shoves, so we are going with a bit more solid ranges than what we could, even with the big stack. And in here, because there's sitting out, so players should know that they are getting money if they are just standing tight. So I'm opening even something like king 8 off, because it should be pretty easy for our opponents to notice that if they're just waiting, they're going to get money, because this player is the shortest stack and he's going to be eliminated first. Yeah, Christian, I told you that it's going to be way better. Way better, even though it's probably a bit harder to use. When we got the 5.5 big blind reshove, we are going to need to go for it no matter what. Even though with Anton we have only 5 hands, like I don't have my limits set up in the most optimal way for 50-50s. So in general I would recommend that you are having 7 and 6 handed hands together, and then 8 to 10 handed hands together. That's probably pretty close to optimal. But in here we have seen like our opponent has raised once with pocket kings, so, and I think that we haven't seen anything but solid hands before, so oh well. In here we are calling everybody else with H-Jack off except this Bubos Banka. So both of these games are now at the bubble, and with the 125 to 250 level, we are like 6 tables out of 8 tables have already ended. So this is something that I think that, if I remember correctly, it's 40 to 45 minutes on average that these games are going to last. And even though we are going to be quite guaranteed the money if we are just hanging on tight, we don't want to hang on tight, because we are going to have a plus EV way to increase our stack size. And in these games you need to, like, if you're playing double or nothings, then it would be that I would be really tight, because there would be like no reason for me to risk the solid stack size that I do have and almost guaranteed survival. But in these games, because it's not only about survival, it's also about accumulating chips. So that's something that we will be trying to do at pretty much all the stops that we can. King 6 is going to be on the edge. It's going to be so on the edge. I think it's still slightly profitable, so everything that's profitable is pretty much that I'm going to take here. But we see that there are situations that when we are happy to shove deuce 3 off with the same stack depth on the game and from the button, and then there are situations that king 6 off is going to feel like, I don't wanna, like, this guy being all in and being out of the game pretty much guaranteed during this orbit makes a huge difference for our. And there is one player playing a weak hand like aces and getting eliminated on the table. You shouldn't play those weak hands, guys. And then there is a player with a bigger stack on the bubble that goes all in with pocket aces. And then there's someone with smaller stack that is going to like call him with something like king 8 off or king 9 off. Like, what the absolute. It doesn't make any sense. But the High flush delivered. There's just like when there is a bigger stack all in and you are in the bubble, you'll need to have a really solid, really great hand. Like pocket queens is usually going to be on the edge that what you can call with if you are the smaller stack there, because the smallest stack or in a three-way pot, there's only like there is one good result for the smallest stack. It's that you win the pot. For the second smallest stack, there's going to be only one horrible situation out of 6, and that's going to be the one horrible situation is going to be that the smallest stack wins. Every other result, it's okay. Doesn't matter that much. And for the second smallest stack, pretty much like even if the biggest stack on the pot wins, he's going to get the survival money anyways. And if he wins, then it's going to be great because he's going to get a larger stack size then. So there is going to be way less risk in getting involved with the. There's going to be a lot of risk to get involved in a pot when you are the smallest stack and the bubble is going to burst. So when there is the situation, I'm actually trying to see the hand. So it's here. We could actually look through this hand afterwards. But I think this Lucas D guy that calls here with the smallest stack with Queen 9 off, he's losing something like a whole buy-in there compared to folding. So it's like that big of a mistake. That's a really horrible mistake. And you are having only 800 chips in the pot. Especially if we are thinking that there is going to be the. And now we are going to something quicker. So in the regular speed 50-50s, the average game time is from 40 to 45 minutes. So there's going to be a lot of times that you are going to have an option to wait it out. Not so in the turbos. The turbos are going to take about 20 minutes on average. 20 to 25. So in these games it's going to be way more important that you are all the time, you are going to it's going to be way more important that all the time you are going to use your spots. Like using your spots is going to be really, really, really important in these games. Usually the guys that are good in taking their spots and abusing the tighter players are going to make money in these games, and there are a lot of regs that they seem to have the counterintuitive thinking that they are aiming for break even. Like they are playing with such a tight strategy that they are practically never increasing their stack sizes. And we can see a lot of players in these games that think that when there's 10 players on the table, you can wait for a good hand forever. But I'm telling you that it's not going to be the case in 50-50s. Like if you are approaching these games like you would approach if you are approaching these games like you would approach a double or nothing, you are going to lose so much money in these games. In double or nothings, it usually makes a lot of sense to just avoid any kind of collisions. But in 50-50s, some collisions are going to be tolerated because the ICM pressure is going to be way less in these games. And as I said, that it's going to be important to be stealing chips from the tighter players, and it's also going to be pretty important not only steal chips from the tighter players, but also playing pots against the weaker players on the table. Because when we are playing pots against the weaker players on the table, then we are going to get the chips easier from them than we are going to get them from regs. And I think most of the regs in these games are making a lot of mistakes in that they are not playing enough hands with the weak players on the tables. Like when you see a weak player on the table, then you want to play hands with those players because those are going to be the players that you are going to get the money easiest out from. And where you can get the money easiest out from, you should get it from there. Like this is also one of those moments that, yeah, makes sense, right? Or rather than nothing else makes sense. But it isn't that easy to do it when you are on the table. And also, when I said that there are going to be players that are going to be the regs are going to in general be really needy in these games, then one good idea what not to do in these games is to give easy values to needy players. If you are giving easy values to needy players, you are going to have a bad time here. Like if you are constantly out kickered, you are going to get owned. So there are 2 points that we can steal money from the nits, but if they are playing strongly back at us, usually it means that they are having a stronger hand than we do. And when we are aggressively stealing, usually our hand is not going to be that premium. But nits being nits, they are almost always having a premium hand. In there, I think that with a suited hand with a big card, I think that with those pot odds and those players in the hand, it's going to be very plus EV to go hunt for the flush, and we are going to pot control a lot here. And Christian says that you hate giving money to nits, and that's what you should hate. Like, I like money, so I'm getting it where I can get the easiest. And also, if other players are taking my money when they are playing tight and they are hitting their, like, only way to lose money to the needy players if we are ourselves playing aggressively is to pay them off when they are hitting it big. So you will need to be a bit better, and you will need to evaluate how good is your hit more better, and also what kind of range does your opponent have here. And Lubas, what does the 8 Chiro text mean at the place of some players? It's the amount of tables, so I'm having 8 tables open. There is Chiro tables waiting for action. Now that we are having one table that's waiting for action, then it's 8 Chiro 1. And there is Chiro tables that we need to act in a hurry. And you can't see the 8 tables, I'm having them outside of my screen, or actually on the same screen but outside the part of the screen that I'm streaming. So it's not a player HUD type of thing, it's more like my table management HUD kind of thing. And we can see in these games, like, these are, if I would need to vote, I would say that these games or the MTT sit and goes, either one of these is going to be the easiest game to multi-table. Like in these 50-50s, we are having 8 tables going on, and we can go quite easily. Like, there is no hurry. We got 8 tables going on, but when there are about 8 to 10 players on every table, the amount of time it takes for us to have another decision, it's going to be quite a while. So these games are easy to multi-table because not like the situations. The situations can be quite complicated to understand at certain points, but you are always having 6 to 10 players on a table. And pretty much the same with MTT sit and goes. Like in MTT sit and goes, you are almost always having 9 players on the table. So they are going to be an easy game to multi-table because of the amount of decisions that's getting back at you is going to be quite low. 9-jack suited probably isn't going to be a good open here. So I'm thinking that it's probably going to be a bit too wide. Especially with the loose guy on the big blind. So that was a clear mistake. And Eki asked, how big screen am I playing? A 27-inch screen that's having the resolution of 2560 to 1440. But I'm only streaming a full HD portion of the screen, so that's why you can see a part here. And in here we hit money. We are against an aggressive opponent. The flop is quite, I'd say that the flop is going to be quite awesome for us. And we got like one guy opening for a pot, and then there is one guy shoving over us with pocket kings, so he got it all in with a 2-outer. Unfortunately, we didn't run that well in that spot. And Christian said that tables are disappearing and you are winning money, and that's one thing that is irritating him in the 50-50s. I think that's awesome. Like in general games, you can know that and you can tilt yourself slightly if you are like thinking about in how many tables have you been eliminated already. And if you have been eliminated in a lot of tables, you might go into a tilt that I haven't got to the end in nearly enough games. But in 50-50s, it's awesome because you need to really play a lot of these games to get a good feel on when you are winning and when you are losing. So it's going to be like a tilt management. Like it's going to be good because you can manage your tilt problems there. That you can't know that when the table is eliminated that have you won in it or not. Like, and the tables can even be eliminated if you are not in the pot, so because there can always be 2 other players that are getting it in and the smaller stack gets eliminated on the bubble end. And yeah, I'd hope so that the stream is working right now. It did take a lot of investigation on where's the problem, but it's good if it works now. Something like ace-9 suited would be a solid open, perhaps ace-8 suited. Ace-6 suited, I think that we are going to get ourselves in nasty spots when opponents are going to be quite likely to 3-bet us. In here, I think that even though we are having a slight reg against us, I think that on the turn we are going to get the pot, but when our opponent has such a strong hand as the pocket tens, I wouldn't think that we are going to get out of that pot that easily. It's quite interesting that he has a pretty good re-steal stack size, or he had, and he didn't shove the pocket tens there. I think that's pretty curious. And actually, I'm looking at the games that are running right now, and the games seem to be quite good. Like we can, at least on the $7 games, I think that we are seeing quite a lot of players that are players that we want to play against. So seems pretty good. And even some regs that are playing a lot of tables against us are, I think that they are going to have enough leaks for it to be profitable playing against them. Off stream, I'm having a really nasty hand. Really, really nasty hand. It's like a show on why you are going to get into problems with small pocket pairs. We open pocket deuces from hijack. I think that pretty much like from that position, like pretty much every pocket pair is going to be plus EV to open. Then someone calls us in position. And of course in that situation also that we can call this Danu Villa if he opens, it's going to be pretty good. It's going to make it better that then we can open this kind of a hand when we know that we can call pretty much all of our opponents. But then we can also see that there's a problem. We are having we are flopping nothing, but with pocket deuces and such a dry flop, we are going to be ahead of our opponent's range so often that we need to call and our opponent bets twice small. And the nasty part with pocket deuces is that our opponent pretty much always, he's either ahead of us or he's going to have at least 6 clean outs to win us, and we have only 2 outs to improve our hand. So we are having an interesting situation that we know that our opponents can screw us, and we don't pretty much know that when our opponent hits, but there's just so much in his range that doesn't hit, and that's going to be a problem in playing those weak pocket pairs, because you'll need to do calls that are not going to feel that good. But it's going to be always about what is my opponent's range here, how does my opponent's range hit this flop, and is my opponent going to be likely bluffing here with hands that are weaker than my hand? And what's the probability of getting cheaply in the showdown? Like, we are not going to call 3 barrels with pocket deuces, but the bet on the flop, check on the turn, and bet on the river we can call, because it's also going to be, quite often it's going to be a weak line. About 10 big blinds. Let's just take his position advantage away and let's just shove it. There would have been some weaker hands that I would rather min raise fold, and some stronger hands that I would rather min raise call. So I'm trying to get a balance and polarized ranges on those situations. Depends on the opponent, and if an opponent is like this guy seems to be quite tight, then it might be that my ranges are going to add up to about 100% on what I'm playing there. Depending on the opponent, of course. Against an opponent that plays a lot back at me, then I'm going down with my ranges. Profilman said that he didn't shove with pocket tens. Yeah, that's also going to be something that we are thinking that he's probably not going to be that aggressive. And we can see that 1.3% of 3-bet. So if that's like honest 3-betting range, that's like pocket aces and pocket kings and some pocket queens. Like, you can imagine that someone's playing those kind of shitty cards like pocket queens. 3-betting. That's some true courage. But I think that it's going to be like more often regs are going to have leaks that they are 3-betting a bit too much of their range, and they're making themselves easy to play against if you like never need to plan for our opponent just flatting if they're only seeming to have a range in if they are only seeming to have a 3-bet range, or in here ace-8 suited, it's going to be on the edge. We could also shove this because it's only 8.2 tourney adjusted big blinds. But I think that like opponents are more likely that they are going to have a leak in 3-betting too much of their range and making themselves easier to play against. Like, you can, if you are thinking about it, you can pretty much notice on why it's not a good idea to 3-bet all of your range that you are going to play against, like 15 to 20 big blinds deep, because then it's going to be you are going to give your opponents pretty easy game plan to follow. In here, if there is like, if he limps, we are going to shove. If he folds, we are going to shove. I think that people are going to be limping with generally too weak of a range. Even though we are seeing pocket kings here, it doesn't deter us from shoving the next time around. Like, if we are going with ace-5 suited, then it's going to be a situation that we think that our opponent is having like 85%, he's going to have BS, he's going to have a hand that he'll need to fold, or when he calls that we are ahead, and like 15% we are stepping into a trap. And because we are having much of that courage stuff, and we are going to try to abuse another player that seems to be limping too much by getting all of the big blinds and all of the antes that are easily available for us at that point. It's nice for me to say that probably players are going to have a mistake on 3-betting too much when I'm seeing two regs here with 1.2% 3-bet. Like 3 out of 240 and 1 out of 85. Let me say that those two guys are certainly 3-betting low enough, but they probably would still make more money if they would 3-bet a bit more than that. With pocket nines, I don't see any single way that we would fold this hand. We are going with this hand. Even against two opponents. Looking good, still looking good. Looking good all the way to the end, even against three. And in these 50-50s, there is practically two options of being in the bubble. First option, you are having a big stack, you are having fun. Second option, you don't have the bigger stack, you are not having fun. Certainly not having fun. In here, with ace king off, we are going to shove. And in the previous hand that we had like 4 big blinds and we didn't shove, that was made on purpose, that even when we are 2 players out of getting the money, there are situations that there will be a 3-way all-in brewing. And also we are going to, I think that in general we are going to get more situations where opponents are going to misread our stack size. So and Christian says that yesterday I played live, UTG limps like every time, MP calls like every time I'm shoving ace king from the cutoff with 15 big blinds, both call UTG, AA, MP shows kings. Yeah, like even if there are players that are playing almost every hand, there's a secret that like 5% of the time they are still having a really good hand. So, and usually it's going to, you are going to remember those times that the players are having the great hands. And actually, could someone send me the link of the Twitch chat in a pop-out, because with all of this extra stuff that has been going on from the first moments off on that, I had closed my Twitch chat, so I haven't noticed if someone has talked there. And usually I like to have both of the communication channels open. Thank you, Dea. And I don't know, have I missed anything from the Twitch chat? If I have, sorry about that. And in here, pocket jacks, when we are opening these kind of hands, we are always going to be raise calling, even against the biggest stack. And as I already explained a bit earlier, that in these games it's going to be interesting that in general in tournament poker, always that if you are having a bigger stack against another big stack, you are going to need to be more cautious because of the ICM. But in these games, there's an interesting non-linearity in that when you are having a really big stack, the survival equity becomes smaller than the chip equity, and you are going to have a, like if you are having 10 big blinds but you are having 1500 chips, you need to be tighter than in a situation that you are having 10 big blinds but you are having 3000 chips, because with 3000 chips you are going to play for a pot that's usually like 6000 chips, so the pot will be worth 2 survivals. So if you win the pot, then your stack will be pretty much worth 3 survivals. But if you are having only 1,500 chips, usually you are risking chip worth of one and a half survival to get to a stack worth that's going to be about a bit more than 2 survivals. Callion, congrats. That's the good point in MTTs, that when you are playing MTTs, you are usually like this guy is a reg, he's a needier looking reg, and then he calls on the bubble with queen 10 suited. That's going to be something that's for sure not going to be plus EV. Callion, we had some server troubles, so it should be fixed now. Mm, 90-man turbo knockouts they are a fun structure and they are a fun game. Like the progressive knockouts are going to make the knockouts worth it at every point, and also the 90-player knockouts. I think that regs are afraid of the structure. Like the structure, you'll need to think about it a bit more. So the structure is something that not a lot of players or not a lot of regs are feeling comfortable with, but I think it attracts people that they are playing a bit bad because of the structure. And also there is another thing to note is that when regs are afraid of some structure, then usually the games are going to be really good. And I think that the 90-player knockouts, they have always been really good. So it's a structure that I recommend, because if you are playing games that are lasting that long anyway, or if you are playing games with breaks, it's usually quite a great game to play. Against the largest stack, we don't want to go there. Now there is exactly 6 players, and interestingly enough, the top part of the table has been eliminated, so there's only the bottom part of the table remaining. Even against the smallest stack, I think that it's going to be an easy spot to shove. And for Queen Deuce off, that's going to be the worst hand that can be against us. Marcus, why I think the $5 games are the smallest progressive knockout running, but there's also the $11 progressive knockout running right now. So there is going to be a bigger one as well. In here, when we are the smallest stack, we'll need to take some chances, and when we are at the button with an ace, we'll want to take the chance, and we want to min raise rather than shove, because then it makes a possibility that these guys are going to get in the pot together, so it would be an easy spot for us to fold. And also I think that we are going to get more folds with a smaller bet sizing. The $11 games, they don't run that much, so it's one reason that the games are not as awesome as they could be, because the bigger games are not running. Why don't you shove ace-5? If you are referring to the ace-4, I think I explained it already. I think that there is a more plus EV way to play it than shove. And Calleon has a point that there might be its own work to adjust to the progressive knockout, so it might mean a lot of extra stuff compared to the benefit. I think that if even if you are playing like a solid MTT game, if you don't need to take the progressive knockout, like there are certain spots that you'll really need to take the progressive knockout into effect. But I think the basic strategy will be almost at every point it's going to be the same. And what a surprise, we got to be the smallest stack for a while. Now we are the second stack again. And I think this is good. Like the player that's going to be the second lowest stack, abusing the lowest stack by shoving there, so they are going to get a lot of gain there. And Christian, before it was the $11 180 man knockout, and they didn't run that often. I think that they were also normal speed game and not a turbo game. I think the turbo game will be a game that more people are apt to playing, because if you are playing a non-turbo SNG and it's 180 man, it can last for over 5 hours, and that's going to be quite a big time commitment, because always when you are playing MTTs you need to know that you can be there to the end. And also the knockout that's not progressive, it doesn't, I don't think that there's a lot of point in a non-progressive knockout in an MTT, because when the knockout is non-progressive, usually it means that at the early game it makes some sense, but at the late game the knockouts are going to be, the regular knockouts are going to be so low compared to the equity that you are having in the stacks, that you shouldn't have any point of being any point, or you shouldn't expand any thought of for the knockouts. So it's something that the progressive knockout works a lot better, because then it's pretty much a constant stream of the knockout pressure throughout. So I like the structure a lot, because then the knockout sums and the stack equities are going to stay in check. Never lucky. Pocket jacks against the weak ace. If it comes to us, we are going to do a small raise, and if Taiben shoves, we are going to fold this, because I think that this guy might do a mistake there, and our hand is pretty much one of the crappiest hands that we can have there. Of course, if now Taiben shoves, then we need to call with pocket deuces. If Honsula shoves, that's going to be a different thing, because his range is going to be stronger. Now it's like trying to mentally think about how often these two guys are going to get into it. Let's say that they are going to get into it often enough, and with pocket deuces we are guaranteed a flip, but against the range that how tight an opponent should be there, I'm thinking that we are going to be way worse off than a flip. Yeah, Kuba, like Jacks is such a weak hand. It's an impossible hand to play perfectly, so. And hello to City Pro on Twitch chat. This Yoga guy did play a lot of extra hands that he shouldn't, so like in this case that when we are having a really crappy stack situation, but we are having players that are going to be quite likely taking part in pots that they shouldn't, then we are also adjusting our own. I think that with the pocket deuces it has been pretty close. And Kuba says that deuces are never ahead of any hand, flipping tops. You can annoy ace deuce off a lot with pocket deuces, but it's just like the pocket deuce is only ahead of hands with the deuce in those, so it's never ahead of any range. But with the pot odds we are getting in certain spots, it's going to be sometimes good enough, even if we are never ahead. It's going to be interesting that with 3 minutes of blind time, this is going to be now a situation that we are going to take our time with the actions. Because if we are taking our time with our actions, then we can make sure that when it's Yoge's turn, he will need to be all in. Because then we can guarantee that the blinds are going to be 300 to 600. Honjula should have a pretty tight range. What the crap? Queens never lose. Like Honjula, when he's risking his whole stack, and there are 2 players that can really make him pay, and there's one player that shouldn't. So shoving Queen 9 suited there is going to be a bad play. Because he's almost guaranteed that there will be a player all in during the next hand, so. That was a spot where he pretty much guaranteed that. Bibanov, we will have some special ending at the end. We will look at least one hand. And now it sucks quite a lot that we are having ace 9 suited and we are waiting. But there is 8 seconds to go that the blinds are going to be up for sure. So we are using our time. So now the blinds will be up for sure. But Bibano, we will have poker only for this last table, and we are going to look through one important hand in 50-50s, and it's going to be an important hand for also all the rest of the. And Lubas, sorry for sophistry. Doesn't matter, but it's like it's either flipping or pocket deuces is basically always against, like any sensible range, pocket deuces is going to be behind it. And we'll need to call, because only bad thing is if Yoge 64 wins the pot and we don't get second. If we get second, it's going to be okay. The only thing that's going to be bad if Yoge 64 wins and he's going to be the second stack. But right now, everything worked out pretty well. So I'd say quite a nice session for 16 games. And ROI has been quite nice. Like EV ROI has also been quite nice for 4 1 buy-ins and 8 buy-ins that we won after. But there is one hand that I marked, because I think that it's going to be quite good. Hand to note. So here is the hand that I said at earlier on. Probably I should take the hand that the opponent also did the opponent shoved with the Queen 9 suited, because that's also a counterintuitive hand, because in general, if you are thinking that you are having 10 big blinds and you are having 5 people behind you, Queen 9 suited, it's actually a pretty good hand to shove with. So let's copy the hand. Let's do this as a basic hand. Paste from clipboard. We are having a 50-50 structure already. And poker newbie, what about just sitting out? In what situation? If you are annoyed at the fact that I did stall the gameplay, I don't actually care. I'm at the poker tables in general, I'm at the poker tables to make money, and if the best option available for me is to stall, I don't want to get style points. I want to play effective poker. So that's going, and if we are sitting out, well, it makes a bit more, but then all the rest of the hands are going to take less time. So this is the hand. We know that if everybody plays perfectly, we can shove about 90%, because we are having a large stack. Our risk is going to be very little, because there is not a single stack that can really punish us for being too wide here. We know that opponents need to be quite tight. I think that actually this Bubos Bankaren is also going to be even tighter than 18%. So I think that we can go for any two hands here. And if we are thinking that Yogurtov is going to shove pocket sevens and up, I think that this is going to be quite a wide range. But then Lucas D can call with only pocket queens plus. And he called here with queen 9 off, that's like 5% of the prize pool. And when prize pool is about 9.5 buy-ins, then having more than 5% of the prize pool mistake means that the opponent loses about half of the buy-in. About half of the buy-in by making this call, if we are playing pretty much perfectly. And if I'm thinking about what kind of ranges we are having there, there's this Aarnimetsa guy, he's kind of a bastard there, that when he's getting a big hand or a big stack, he's going to abuse a lot on the opponents. I think something like this is a general what opponent are going to call. I think when there are 3 other opponents behind them. So like pocket kings is going to be at the edge here. I think with pocket queens our opponent is going to lose some money, and with queen 9 off they are going to lose a crap ton of money. And as I said, that the problem is in here that they are having only one good option. Only option that they are going to make any money out of the game is going to be the option that they are winning the pot. If they are not winning the pot, they are always going to be the 6th guy out, so they don't get any survival money. Let's see if and Deja will also be joining us for the special event. This is the Honsula hand, I think, with the Queen 9 suited. So let's look at this situation. Like in here, the big blind is almost guaranteed to be all in. Honsula is UTG with 5 big blinds, and he's having a pretty solid hand. But there is a really big stack, and there is another stack that can make him pay here. So let's see what Hold'em Resources Calculator will say. Actually, with 5 big blinds, it can even be a shove, depending a lot on what's this MP's range, what Hold'em Resources gets us. Like Queen 9 suited isn't even a shove with pretty much the perfect ranges. So in this case, I think that Honsula is making a mistake, but it's a less of a mistake than I thought. Let's see if this opponent is calling a bit less. Then Queen 9 suited is going to be about break even. I still don't like his shove there. I think that he should be he should be way. I think that in general it would be good that if he would be tighter in there. Because he's going to risk like all his stack against two opponents, and this Anaumov has been taking a lot of bad calls. But then we are going to have something special that, and Deja will join me in here. I saw on some other stream that I saw a game that will be a nice game to play. And let's try to see if we can get some players activated. I need to blank my screen for a while that we can set up. But after that we are going to start.